various places in the United States, and he encouraged them to come back. In fact, his PhD student, Riazuddin, is the man who founded the physics department at Quaid-e-Azam University. And so it stayed for a while before it decayed. Why it decayed is another story. But this is one thing that he did. There's so many other things, like the Pakistani space program, it preceded India's. India started around 1965 or so. Pakistan started around 1962. Incidentally, I remember this was 1962. Abdul Salam had come to Karachi at the Pak American Cultural Center, and he was talking about these sounding rockets that he had persuaded the Americans to give to Pakistan so that we could start firing rockets, get some familiarity with rocketry. And so I was in the audience, and when he finished, I put up my hand and I asked him a question. In fact, I remember that question. How much was the thrust of that rocket? He said, I love to see such questions from young people. Now that's the sort of encouragement that he would give to people. And I think there's a lot that Pakistan owes to him. But you know, that persecution, which you have so dramatically shown, and which, well, it hasn't gone away. It's there as much as yesterday, in fact, perhaps more. So just to give you an example, this was 6 weeks ago that there was to be a Salam Fest, 3 days of celebrating science in Pakistan. It was to be strictly scientific, but it was named after Abdul Salam, and it was negotiated by students with the university's authorities, and the university's vice chancellor said, fine, go ahead. So then he gets a visit by the Khatm-e-Nabuwat people who come and they say, we don't mind you're talking about science in Pakistan, but you can't name it after that kafir, after that Qadiani. And in fact, those who were associated with it then were bad-mouthed by the social media. I was only invited as a speaker. I was not part of the organization, but then a whole slew of propaganda calling me Qadiani Sahulatkar, a collaborator. So that's the sort of madness. And you know, how many times have I said this? Oh Lord. The National Center for Physics on our campus at Quaid-e-Azam University, it was started by Riazuddin, his student. It wouldn't have taken off but for the fact that there was Salam behind it earlier on. And yet, they will not call it the Salam Center for Physics. They, in fact, so there's a story behind this. So I was mourning this fact on television, and this is, when was it? November 2017. This was Salam's death anniversary or birthday, I don't remember. And Nawaz Sharif was watching Geo television, and I was telling, I was speaking about how the world recognizes him, but Pakistan doesn't. And then I mentioned that for 20 years we've been trying to get the National Center for Physics renamed as the Salam Center for Physics. So in fact, Nawaz Sharif sent off, as soon as as the program finished, I got a phone call from someone who said he was the Prime Minister's secretary. So he said, Miyan Sahab, आपका प्रोग्राम देखते रहें और and he would like you to send a proposal to him that this be renamed as the Abdus Salam Center for Physics, and please add with this that 5 scholarships should be given for studying in the United States, physics in the United States, and they should be called Abdus Salam scholarships, something like that. So I did so. I didn't get a response, but 3 weeks later I read in the press that in fact this had been authorized. And then I got the documents from the secretary. So the documents were signed by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the President of Pakistan, the Minister of Education, the Secretary of Education, the Secretary of Science and Technology, and I have those documents and I can share them with anyone who wants it. These were sent to the National Center for Physics. They ripped them and threw them into the garbage. Because, I don't know the reason, because so it hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed.
It's on God's speed. It's on God's speed.
Okay.
Very, very strong. Well, that was a very, very amazing.
It was.
That was wonderful. Like, I was having on every word.
Thaver sir, after watching it, the thought which came to my mind is, "Hum kitni badkismat kaum hai."
Absolutely.
So it was great, but it was really depressing because, like you say, nothing has changed, and
We did the same thing recently to Atif Mia.
yeah.
You know, when he screened at MIT, he was on a panel. So I went to him and said, Atif, you have to win the Nobel Prize, no pressure. Because it'll be beautiful. I think it's Pakistan, so I don't think anything drives the point home. But if Atif Mia would also win the Nobel Prize for economics, I think in some quarters people will begin to wonder, we're really losing out on our best minds. You know?
Well, yeah. Look, having the kind of impact on science that Abdus Salam has had, I don't think many other Nobel Prizes have had that deep level of impact. There's a Nobel Prize awarded every year. And some of them are not so great, frankly. I think that, well, particularly the ones for peace.
Good one.
But this one really, you open it. Nobody talks about this Salam Weinberg Glashow theory anymore. It is called the standard model. Because this is what we use all the time as much as, you might use Newton's laws. So it's got to that level of fundamental truth. And so economics is different. You can do something on the housing crisis in the US and find that's okay. It doesn't really shake the world.
Yes. The point I was trying to make is that we keep losing out on knowledge because of our prejudice, right? Societies pay a price for prejudice. Like you said, Pakistan lost out. I mean, the wonders that Salam could have done and tried to do despite the persecution, despite the ostracism. Salam, even after 1974, was secretly helping Pakistan make a nuclear weapon.
Which is not a good thing in my mind.
No, it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing, but it speaks to... No, it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But look at this man who was trying to do whatever he could for Pakistan. Be it from, all the way from waterlogging, for which he got someone, apparently India had asked for weapons, and Kennedy was perplexed about what to give Pakistan other than weapons. And he asked his science advisor, what should I give Pakistan? Salam had already told the person that we need a waterlogging expert. And so Roger Revelle was sent to Pakistan, Banda Tamlan Diaz. So one hears this chatter online about Salam was a theoretician, didn't do anything in Pakistan. But he did a lot for waterlogging also.
Oh yeah, the Agriculture Research Institute owes to him as well.
Also him as well. Yeah. This is an obscure piece of knowledge, but he was always trying to think of how to make things better in Pakistan.
He conceived of himself as a man of science.
Right.
And science applies throughout society. On the other hand, he wasn't very scientific in certain things, of course. He wasn't scientific in his religious outlook, and certainly, so Zakir and I had a small dispute yesterday. Which, I thought that there was too much religious symbolism in this movie. I would have liked less. I also thought that there should be a counterpoint to his asserting that physics, that religion, Islam, had driven him towards this point of realization where he sought where he sought the unification of the weakened electromagnetic forces. Well, look, there's Weinberg over there, and so I must tell you. So when I was writing I asked Professor Salam to write the preface to my book on Islam and science. I specifically wrote that Salam, who calls himself a Muslim, or who is a Muslim, I don't remember, and Weinberg, who is an avowed Jewish atheist, came from two very different directions and converged on to exactly the same point. And so actually Salam referred to that and said, I absolutely agree with what Hoodboy has said. There are no two ways of doing science. There's only one way. I derived my inspiration from the Quran. Somebody else may do it from elsewhere, so that's fine. Having said that, I must say that a couple of times we did have an argument, particularly when he sought to relate the extra dimensions of space-time with things from above, which I don't think is correct. But those, look, nobody can agree on everything. So,
I have a question.
Barbara, just a second. I think Aisha.
Can I just say one thing very briefly?
Yeah, please,
Just very briefly. So we had this sort of exchange yesterday also. Salam, I'm more of a Stephen Weinberg fan than a Abdul Salam fan. The religion existed because it was a depiction of how Salam would do physics. You know. The other thing is, Salam would also play to the gallery and said very different things about his science, religion, and interfacing. I remember exactly what you wrote in your book, and he's in progressive scientific circles, Salam would say the unification paradigm was unconsciously motivated by my belief as a Muslim in Tawheed. But then in other places, he would actually say I was inspired by, for example, the domes of the Badshahi Masjid or verse X, Y, and Z. In the film, he evokes what's called non-overlapping magisteria, that these are different realms, don't mix the two. But then he's also have known to say, oh, XYZ verse can be mined for, in the Quran can be mined for scientific truths, which is called Bucalism, and it's the lowest form of science religion interfacing. So, Salam was quite brilliant as he was all over the grid when it came to science religion interfacing. I'm sure when he wrote the foreword to your book, he realized, I'm writing to Pervaiz Hoodboy. And so let's customize the response to one